Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip of Anatomy of the Church and State. Be sure to catch the full episode on Rumble or ChristiansForLiberty.com. Links are in the show description. Now, you mentioned dinosaurs do have the carbon-14. How else do we know that dinosaurs don't prove Genesis false? Are they mentioned in the Bible in kind of a covert way? Or
Absolutely. So, dinosaurs, in short, from a biblical worldview, they are land animals. And so dinosaurs, by definition, are land animals with a certain hip structure, legs underneath the body. Just by the way, technically, your things like your pterosaurs, the flying reptiles, or things like the plesiosaurs, the swimming reptiles, they're not technically dinosaurs, although we tend to lump them all together. But dinosaurs are land animals. The Bible says land animals were made on day 6. Therefore, dinosaurs were made on day 6 as land animals. And someone say, but if that's true, then why don't we find the word dinosaur in the Bible? Well, because the word dinosaur is a new word. It was not invented until 1841 by a guy named Sir Richard Owen. It means terrible lizard. It wasn't used much until the early 1900s. So before then, what were these creatures called in general, especially before evolutionary thinking? In general, they were called dragons. And there are dragon legends literally all around the globe that sound a whole lot like dinosaurs. Now, some have been embellished over time. It's true, but many of them accurately describe various known types of dinosaurs. And you find the word dragon in the Old Testament, which may be, in some cases, referring to actual dinosaurs. And then you got like references in the book of Job. One example, Job 40. God will show up to look at Behemoth, which is a monstrous beast. And the description fits really a sauropod dinosaur that's really big. It's got a long tree-like tail. And so it's more of a sauropod dinosaur more than anything else. You got an example there. And people say, okay, but wait, if dinosaurs lived with man, then what did they eat? Especially ones like the T-Rex. The short answer is, well, if you go back to the beginning, that helps us understand the answer. So in the beginning, God made a perfect creation. He told Adam and Eve they were to eat fruit, the animals were to eat plants. Originally, all things were vegetarian, which I know it sounds really weird to us today, but makes really good biblical sense. Because there was no death in this world until after Adam sinned, which means you can't eat meat until after he sinned, because when you eat meat, you're eating an animal that has died. Before Adam sinned, there's no death. All things have to be vegetarian. And by the way, plants are not alive in the biblical sense. And so the original diet would have been vegetation for all living things. But then man sinned, and that sin changed everything. And probably pretty quick after the fall of man, the diets for many dinosaurs changed pretty quickly post-flood. And to what we see, with them later on in the fossil record, of course, animals living today, they're carnivorous. And so that would change the diet there. And then dinosaurs are land-dwelling and air-breathing. Therefore, their representative kinds would have been on the ark. And some would say, but dinosaurs on the ark, weren't they too big? The average size of a dinosaur was equal to a cow, and some were small chickens. And then actually, all dinosaurs started small because they hatched from eggs. And the biggest an egg can get for a whole bunch of reasons is about this big, about the size of a football. So all your T-Rex eggs are this big. Sauropod dinosaur eggs this big. They hatched from there and then grew from something that's a little bit bigger than a football into what we see over time in the fossil record. But they all start small and grew from there. So God brings young adults to Noah for many good practical reasons. They get on the ark fit, no problem. They get off the ark post-flood. There should be records of man with dinosaurs post-flood, and indeed there are, but they were called dragons for the longest time. And again, those legends are literally everywhere. And then, of course, evolution pops on the scene, mid-1800s. All of history gets redefined, and then people after that assume they lived millions of years ago. And that's been the narrative passed down ever since. And there's a lot of fiction that's developed over time as well. But in short, that's your short answer to dinosaurs. And they would have went extinct probably pretty quickly post the flood of man, flood of Noah's day. But that's your short answer. And as I hope people notice, you don't need a PhD. Now, I can rattle it off pretty quickly because I've said it a few times, all right? But anybody can say what I just say from a biblical perspective. That's all that is. Biblical history applied to the world around us. And so we got good answers, and dinosaurs fit right within that narrative. And they're explained really well. And by the way, we find, again, carbon-14 in dinosaur bones, showing they're not that old. Get this, Jeremiah. We find soft tissue in dinosaur bones all the time. It's literally stretchy, pliable tissue. You can pull it, it'll spring back in place. Blood vessels and red blood cells still intact. They've been authenticated so many times now, we're finding it again and again and again globally. And it's really tissue like that. Soft tissue is made of organic material like our flesh. And it should not last more than hundreds of years after the creature's death. Maybe thousands in special conditions. No way, millions.
Millions, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's a great confirmation of the biblical timescale. And so again, that's another good example of science confirming what the Bible clearly tells us.